White Sox fans, welcome into the Sox On Tap post-game show presented by On Tap Sportsnet. It's Johnny Nani, alongside my guy, Tony On Tap. Unfortunately, discussing another White Sox loss. We can probably assume that at this point in the season. Tony, how you doing?
Johnny, I am doing just about the same as I've been doing for what feels like about a week now. I think we're at 5 in a row after today's White Sox loss. It's painful, and it continues to get even more painful each and every day. This continues to go on here. The beatings will continue until morale improves, and morale ain't improved until we win a baseball game.
I feel like it's a cycle that's unbreakable, right? Because how would you generate morale? Probably win a baseball game, right? But then all the things that we have talked about and are going to continue to talk about going wrong then breaks down morale and also prevents you from winning baseball games, right? So that's where we're at. We're in the cycle. And now, as the episode title states, it's not a hole, it's a crater. That's where we're at. And it's only April 24th.
It is only April 24th, Johnny. April seems like it's taken years off of my life as a White Sox fan. Just watching this team play, I'm sure a lot of people feel that way. It's amazing to sit here on April 24th and just look at where we're at. It's not good, and it shows no signs of getting better. I mean, we had a long extended show about, big picture stuff yesterday. I encourage everybody to go check that out, our Sunday Fun Day episode, wherever you listen to podcasts, or check it out on YouTube. We went in depth on a lot of things, Johnny, but today's no better than it was yesterday. And you're right. It's sort of like the chicken and the egg, man. What comes first?
Right. That's what you talked about being down bad here. Let's discuss that crater. The White Sox dropped to 7-16 with this loss series, opening loss against the Toronto Blue Jays. Lost 5 in a row now after getting swept over the weekend in Tampa Bay. You're in danger of going 6 back, currently 5.5, but that Twins game is not concluded yet. Last I checked, they were up 5-0. You got 3 hits, 4 walks, 1 hit by pitch, and 1 reach on error tonight. That's not going to get the job done. I don't care what the hell else happens in the game. Very rarely will that ever get the job done.
No, it won't get the job done, Johnny. And we've seen this a couple of times from the Chicago White Sox. I believe they were only able to score in 1 inning. That's a common theme that we've discussed here numerous times. You saw the runners left on base thing once again from the Chicago White Sox offense. It's a broken record, and it continues to be. I don't know how you jump out of this. I mean, you saw a couple of different things here from the offense tonight. First one that comes to mind is, for a brief moment there, it looked like Luis Robert fixed his plate approach. Ends up taking a walk, and that's the inning, a 2-out walk that the White Sox were seemingly able to go score some runs in. It's amazing when that happens. And then, the next at bat, he's up there swinging at a breaking ball in the dirt for strike 3. There was some encouraging signs there from Luis Robert. Made another great defensive play. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But no, on an offensive standpoint, Johnny, there just has to be more. There has to be more there. Pissing away leads. That's the worst theme, I think, of them all, is when you have that 2-0 lead, just the inability to go step on the opponent's throat, add more, and keep your team in the ball game. I'm playing from behind way too much.
Right. And you talk about that shift. I think we can turn to certain points in the game and call them turning points, right? And that was in the 4th inning. And when Luis Robert made that catch, first of all, I think we should talk about that incredible hang time on that leap to rob Matt Chapman of a home run in center field. I don't know how he stayed up in the air so long. That was quite amazing. Probably one of the best home run robberies that you'll see this year, just in terms of the timing of the jump and what he had to do to bring that one back. But that should be a turning point, right? It's a big momentum play. Lance acknowledges Luis out in center field. And then the Blue Jays are able to start a 2-out rally after that, thanks to a walk. They string together a couple of hits, and next thing, before you know it, a couple of runs are across the plate. Not great, Bob.
It's not great, Bob. And Johnny, this goes back to something that we touched on a lot yesterday. Teams having fun, and the beatings will continue until morale improves. There's a morale improver right there. One of the greatest catches you're going to see probably all summer, of any team in center field, robbing a home run. Luis Robert, incredible job on that. That should have been a momentum builder. That should have been something that you rally around. That was the first time in a while, it seemed like, I saw the guys having somewhat of fun in the dugout. They panned to the dugout. Eloy Jimenez is, ecstatic. You see the guys all just getting up for Luis Robert. It was an amazing play. It's the one step forward, three steps back that really grinds my gears. You have to be able to then go close that out and take the momentum. Great plays followed by shitty plays is a real way to just curb any sort of build towards positivity that anybody's going to have. And I think that so far early on this season, that's been repeated enough times that it will break you. It will break you very early on. When you see that, it looks weak. It's just, I feel broken from it. I think everybody else should feel broken from it. I don't know about you, but
I gotta pull up our boy Sal's comment here and says, I was worried about your sanity before the Blackhawks season started, but this might be worse. Yeah, you tune into Four Feathers podcast over there, because this was a tank year. But you know what, Tony, you had said something before we jumped on, and honestly, kind of wish we were doing a Four Feathers talking about ping pong balls and lottery odds instead of this, because you knew what to expect, right? All throughout Blackhawks season. Now, here we're open for a rebound season in White Sox land, and it ain't happening. In fact, the absolute worst case scenario possible, which our guy NWI Steve wrote about over at On Tap Sportsnet, is playing out right before our eyes, and it's only getting worse from there. Because I believe you wrote that Saturday, and now they have suffered 3 losses since then, so it's even worse.
Yeah, and he just continues to speak misery into existence. But you do a fine job editing it, Johnny. I don't know how you put up with it.
Thanks. Yeah. Sometimes you just gotta get down to the words and ignore the meaning. That's how you get through it. Back to this game, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Lance Lynn. So it's been a debated topic. Is he cooked? I think that's the question that everybody wants to ask here. 5 innings, 5 hits, 4 runs, all of them earned. 3 walks, 4 strikeouts, 1 home run allowed, which was the dagger in this game. And it was allowed to a guy who was hitting poorly, Kevin Biggio. And Lance hung one right out over the plate with 2 guys on. And before you know it, that's a 3-run homer. And that tilts, tips the scales in Toronto's favor there. Because that a 3-run swing there that eliminates the White Sox lead, went from up 2-1 to down 4-2. And that seemed like the backbreaker already there, and that was only the 4th inning. We weren't even halfway through the game, right?
Yeah, no, we weren't, and that was it. I mean, you could have tuned out at this game and pretty much closed the book at that point. But I do want to back it up a little bit. Is Lance cooked? That's been widely debated. If you look at any corner of the internet that you consume White Sox content in, that gives people a voice to comment on this. He started this game. It was the best start of Lance's 2023 campaign. I mean, that first inning was very impressive. He worked around some stuff up until that point where he gives up that home run. Obviously, he had a little bit of help from Luis Robert, or, you can add another earned run on Lance. It's not the same, but it's still sort of the trajectory of where Lance was sort of headed. There were dangerous spots throughout the past, I'd say year and almost a half with Lance Lynn, that you can look at things that would sort of signal he's on the back half of his career. I think that everybody sort of knows that.
I don't think that's up for debate. That's a well-known fact, just given his age, I think. I'd like to point to a clip that you and Steve generated on the show. Not his last start, but the one before that. And when the velocity was down, and this was still after a 10K performance against the Minnesota Twins. And Steve voiced the concerns then, and understandable, because it's hard to maneuver around major league hitters with that drop in velocity. Now, like you said at the beginning of this outing, he was able to navigate through some things. He was able to get a few strikeouts at least, some of them with movement. And I think the movement's key for him. But then when it evaporates, and we've seen that it can go from inning to inning here, then you get balls that get hung out over the plate and then smacked over the wall. And in turn, runs come across the plate against you, and it breaks morale. And we're in this cycle again. Time is a flat circle.
Yep. Time is a flat circle is exactly right there. And I think the most important thing that I've seen is there's still flashes. There's still flashes of that success. It's just you're not getting any longevity out of Lance Lynn right now. And I remember this clip, and I know exactly which one you're talking about in this discussion with Steve. And I believe I said at that time, you have to be perfect. You have to hit your locations. You can't leave anything up. And that pitch that was hammered right in the middle of the plate. Jason and Gordon talked about it when Santos came in and faced Biggio later. And I believe he got him on a nice tight slider that was low and in. Lance hung that one. That's the example of not being perfect and not hitting your spots when you're working at these velocities against teams like the Toronto Blue Jays that, even a guy who's not having that great a time at the plate, you hang him a cookie, you get him right back into this zone. And we've seen this far too much. I don't know what the answer is here. I don't think Lance is at a position where the White Sox are going to say, okay, DFA, but you already saw them move the rotation around, Johnny.
Right.
To hide him for a day. So is there going to be an IL stint that's going to come for Lance Lynn here? What's the next logical step for Lance Lynn? Did you keep battling through this? How much water can this ship take before it completely sinks? Because we're already heading towards the bottom of the ocean. And that's not just a Lance thing. That's a whole White Sox thing.
Right.
But this isn't helping.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the old Phantom IL stint. I mean, that's an option. We've talked about that before. I mean, obviously, I know he had some fatigue, but back in 2021, remember at the end of the year, there was some Carlos Rodon and Lucas Giolito breaking up there. Whether how legitimate you want to argue those IL stints, they were still IL stints. So that's, an option there. But at the same time, you'd have to line it up with Davis Martin, have him come in there. And then how much do you trust him? I know he's off to a solid start with Charlotte. However, it's, it's different level of hitters that you'd be facing there. So, it sucks that we're at this point of talking about it on that level with Lance Lynn, but that's what the performance dictates. So
are you still enjoying Lance Lynn? Are you still,
the name's still there. I think, should I change my name to L Taker?
No, I don't. If you
want to F in the chat, F in the name bar, F in the name bar on Twitter.
I don't know what else you can go with at this point, Johnny. I mean, I see Lance Lynn enjoyer scroll across my Twitter feed, and I wonder if you're the only one still enjoying Lance Lynn.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a slim crowd these days. I love the big bastard, but man, it's got to get right. And he'll tell you that every time, but it's, that's where you get worried because the mindset's still there. The mentality's always going to be there. I mean, shit.
And you still saw him doing everything that Lance Lynn does when he was successful out there on the mound. It's not like there's a stark difference between him and a guy like Lucas Giolito. And it was even talked about during Giolito's last start. And Beckham sort of said this. You can tell when Lucas Giolito is on or off. With Lance Lynn, he's always on. He's always there mentally. He's always going to go out there and compete. And that's admirable as hell. I think that's why we enjoy Lance Lynn. The sad part is when a guy is still out there with that mentality and he's getting beat as bad as Lance Lynn's getting beat, you're going to hear the same shit from Pedro Grifol come out of it. Like, oh, flush this one. Lance is going to compete.
We're doing a lot of flushing this year.
Yeah.
We got a good plumber affiliate, Tony.
I don't know. I think we probably need one. But Plumber's 911, you see those in the UC at the urinals and stuff. So
right.
The White Sox doing as much flushing as like a whole hockey game at the UC. Plumber's 911. I'm getting a little worried about all that there. It's bad.
Yeah, will the pipes hold up? I feel like they're already congested, going to burst here.
Is that why the house isn't fully built yet? Is because they haven't found a plumber?
We've reached the answer to the long asked question here. going back to the Steve Stone, as our guy Buzz would say, chastising fans on Twitter for not enjoying the carpentry or approving of it every step of the way. Of
The
how
plumbing
this
system was
house
obviously the
built.
problem.
Yeah, so the plumbing was a problem, and we're doing too much flushing this year. If you're not getting the gist on that one, that was Pedro Grifol before the game talking about flushing what happened the day before. And it's been having to, 5 in a row now. So if we're going to flush again, we're getting some backed up septic here.
Did we eat like a bad burrito before this season?
Yeah, the White Sox
food poisoning. White Sox
White
food
Sox
poisoning.
The White Sox had whatever I had before, like that week before the season when I was just out of it. I think that's what happened.
Oh man,
Down bad.
I'm tired of flushing. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I am too. Dude, I know we just talked about Lance a lot. With the rest of the bullpen there, I was worried about this. I know Santos was living on the edge. He did work himself in and then work himself out of those jams. I wonder if the levy's going to break on that because people have been starting to enjoy him because he throws 103 and that's cool and tough.
I
But
enjoy a good 102 mile an hour fastball.
You see how dangerous it can get. And that's once they said, and then I hear Gordon say, well, the slider's his comfort pitch. Sorry, buddy. You're in here for short stints. 103 mile an hour fastball has got to be your comfort pitch. Get comfortable with it because Gordon made a great point. You got to show that first to make the slider even look devastating. Otherwise, the slider's going to look like a cookie to him, even though it's still coming in at like 95, 96, right? So that, whatever. He was able to work out of it. Guess we'll have to evaluate Santos next time. But Keenan Middleton, this is a guy that I was pretty impressed with in his first few outings here. He comes into this one and is not able to complete his inning here. And this is what I was worried about. This was technically the exchange out, right? Because he was the piece that was added when Jose Ruiz left the White Sox. And if you go back and look at Keenan Middleton last year with the Diamondbacks, he was kind of like their Ruiz guy. When you go and look at results and expectations, and now you start to see a little bit of damage on him there. And that's, you already had a shaky bullpen, plenty of guys underperforming. Now you add this to the mix. We're back in the cycle, Tony. We're back in the cycle. So we got problems with the cycle on our washing machine and in the plumbing. That's not a good combination here.
Sounds like they need like a home warranty.
Wait, yeah.
They need a home warranty.
Yeah.
That they could just like call in all these service people to come fix everything. It's I will say this. I'm glad that we're not watching Jose Ruiz out there. On the other note,
we found a positive on the show. Breaking.
We did. I'm glad that we're not watching Jose Ruiz out there. I do like Santos in terms of the velocity. I think it plays. I think, if they can clean a few things up.
Remember when we liked Diego Vieira because of the velocity?
Yeah, but the same thing here. I mean, if we're going to talk like this is, 2018 all over again,
right?
You can start finding the positives in high velocity projects that are in the bullpen instead of just the same old cycle that you talk about. And I'll add guys like Jake Diekman to that mix. When you talk about Middleton, I don't have a feeling he's going to be long for this club. I have a feeling that if Liam Hendricks were to come back, he's probably your odd man out at this point. That's just my thought in the bullpen area. He's probably the first to go. I don't know if you've got a different guy there. I know a lot of people are going to want it to be Diekman, but I have a feeling it's Middleton.
Right. It's a possibility, but we'll see. Obviously, Liam is not. There was a little bit of an update on Liam that he may make an appearance right at the next homestand before ramping up. So that's excellent news. But obviously, no timeline on return to the field yet, understandably so. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Is Tanner Banks still on the active roster here? I want to say because I feel like he'll be the option down though when Lucas Giolito returns from the bereavement list.
That's what I would think.
Right. So then, yeah, when you're talking about another addition there.
Things can change in between now and whenever Liam's back. Right. I know I saw that update as well on Liam making an appearance with the club when they come back to Chicago. I heard he was down throwing in Arizona,
right.
And then he's going to go out and compete. I would imagine AAA rehab stint for a week or two, probably
right.
throwing, every 3 to 4 days, somewhere along that timeline. These are just rough estimates, but it'll probably be at least another month, I would think, Johnny. And
Right.
I don't know how long the leash on Middleton is, and I don't know how much more damage the White Sox can do to themselves between now and when Liam Hendricks comes back. It's kind of scary to think about.
Right. And it's, man, you go and look at the schedule upcoming here. 2 more with these Jays. You got 4 at home against the Rays, who just swept you last weekend. You've got the Twins, the division leading Twins, coming into town after that, after one of those much needed off days, of course. It's like you said, how much damage can they take on? We're already in the crater. So, I mean, it's.
Do they start filling themselves in?
Yeah, dude. Honestly, we are there, and we've talked about it on the show that I hate to be down this bad this early, but it's not a joke here. It's absolutely not. The hole that they've dug themselves is almost insurmountable. It really is, because you're then expecting a turnaround. You got to get on a hot stretch to readjust the morale, first of all, right? And then you also have to play so much better than you have in terms of your pace, right? Pace of winning games. I know the pace has been dog shit because they haven't won many games at all so far. But you're expecting then I think they're like the estimates out after yesterday's loss that 190% better than you have been playing. You go and right the ship and get up to like that, whatever, the win threshold of what would probably take the cake in the AL Central, because
it's too much math right now. I'm too much losing to do the math, Johnny.
And there's no wild card coming from the AL Central. I highly doubt that. Look at all these AL East teams. I mentioned it, all of them above 500. You know damn well someone's just grabbing that. And then you go and look out west, and who knows how sustainable the Rangers run is, but they're technically at the top. Houston's off to a little bit of a, a little bit of a sluggish start for their standards, but I would imagine them to be in the postseason mix. So go and look at where those wild cards are going, and it's coastal. It's not happening in the Central. So we're really down bad. And
you're going to have to play lights out baseball against the AL Central to even have a chance at this. Like lights out. And when I say lights out, Johnny, I mean
like sweeping,
weeping. And they've done nothing thus far to show me that they can sweep the Minnesota Twins.
Right.
Yeah, it's a dark time right now. And, like I said, we talked a lot about that yesterday. I don't know if you've got any more thoughts or if you want to move on to.
I just want to pull up a comment here.
I
think it's funny. It's that we're at this point. It's sad, but it's also funny. So when I go and read something like this, if the wheels are off, why not just go crazy and shake things up in fun ways? Give up on defense and only put power lineups out there. Just pitch to contact. Have 1 through 9 steal bases randomly. That's, I think, hilarious that we're reading this off here. But at the same time, when you go and watch the slosh that you just see on your television night in, night out, and the ineffectiveness of everything, you honestly think, how much worse could it get if you actually tried something experimental like that, Tony? Seriously, my mind does wander there.
It can't get worse. And that's the most hilarious part about this. We, as a fan base, we were so enamored on, having the right guy in the right position, or, how the lineup is structured 1 through 9. But when you start to look at how bad it's gotten so far, I mean, why not try some crazy shit just to see if it works and maybe sparks something. I will say, and something that we sort of glossed over is, this team does miss Tim Anderson at the top. I think they've really struggled in the first inning to get anything sort of going. And I don't want to be, remiss of missing the fact that, Tim Anderson's down. There's the other side of that coin, though, where the White Sox have played a lot of baseball without Tim Anderson over these past couple of seasons. You can add Yohan Moncada to the also down right now list. But do you really see these guys coming back and making an impact? I can see it helping in the AL Central. I could see that not being as bad as it is right now. I just don't know if you add Tim Anderson back into this lineup, and I'm curious for your perspective on this. If you add Tim Anderson back into this lineup, Is it this bad, or is it remarkably better?
No, it's not remarkably better. It's better, right? Because I think everybody knows. You can go and look up the record. The since 2020, that's the mark, right? They're so much better with Tim Anderson than without him. So that obviously there are some variables within there, but it's a trend that definitely bears looking at there. So yes, things would improve, but at the same time, he's still going to be coming back. How good is that knee? What we saw today, I know he's the news coming out before the game is that he is almost ready to go on a rehab assignment, so that's one positive. Another, we are up to two positives here on this episode of Sox on Tap. But that's the other thing too. It feels like, yes, sure, you kind of get a little bit of a motor, motor boost back. You get a maybe some higher on base, some hits to catalyze things at the top. But Tim Anderson's role isn't that of like a run creator. Not that Tim Anderson is less important than someone like this, but if you had a massive power bat coming back that you knew was going to start creating runs big time, that might feel a little bit different, Tony. And it's weird to talk about but I think of Yaz in 2021 when he came back, because he went on a tear after he came back, and he was one of the best run producers in the game from mid-August through all of September. And I feel like that would, I don't know, feel like a bigger boost. And once again, it's not to undercut Tim Anderson's value, what he means to this team, because he'll help you defensively, he'll help you sort out your lineup correctly, right? Because we've got Luis Robert Jr. hitting at the top, who is like 4 for 60 something over his most recent stretch here. So
a guy that should not be hitting at the top of the order,
right? It would help in that regard, but at the same time, is it moving the needle enough? And the answer is no, because they've dug themselves such a crater that we're in right now discussing.
That's fair. I'm ready to flush this one like Pedro.
Oh, yeah. We're doing more flushing here on White Sox land. All right, Tuesday's matchup: Mike Clevenger versus Jose Barrios. I mean, I guess just ask, do you think they can get it back on track Tuesday?
No, I don't. I don't think they can get it back on track at this point. They have to do something to prove it. I said this again, a couple days ago. They just have to do something. It's going to be miraculous if they finally do win a baseball game. We talked a little bit about the Barrios matchup. They know him. They've seen him in the Central before. They've had a couple of good games against him. Johnny, I don't want to automatically go say it's going to be a win. It just feels like at some point the streak has to come to an end. I have no reason to believe in them, but for the sake of hoping that we get to enjoy ourselves tomorrow, I'll say please give me a win.
Yeah. And I believe if you go back and touch on our Sunday Fun Day show, like Tony had mentioned earlier, recommend that too. Some more deep dive discussions on the organizational state of things. But at the very end, we did look ahead to the series, and was Steve kind of outlined that game 2 here would be their best opportunity to take one. And once again, we're this low in the crater where we're talking about taking one, not winning a series or sweeping, to get things right. We got to win one. But yeah, the Barrios thing there, maybe that's a factor. Seeing him time in Minnesota hasn't been.
Is that a positive, or is it a middle of the road thing?
What do you mean?
That we know Barrios.
Oh,
I'm trying to come up with our third positive for the day. Positive.
It should be a positive, because isn't the line always that whenever you face a guy that you haven't seen frequently, it's that, oh, well, the White Sox always struggle with guys they're unfamiliar with. So it's a positive that you have familiarity. Yeah, I guess. All right, number 3. You got a hat trick of positive. We got a hat trick of positives for this episode of Sox on Tap. We appreciate everyone tuning in, jumping in the YouTube comments here. Go subscribe. It's On Tap Sportsnet on YouTube. Like all the videos there, and press a little alert button so you know when we go live for these shows. Tony, you'll be back at it with NWI Steve Tuesday. I really hope you're talking about a winner, man. For your sake, for our sake, for White Sox fans' sake, for everyone.
I hope so too, because doing this day in, day out is just uber pleasant talking about losses. But thank you to everybody who tuned in once again. We enjoyed doing this. Despite the outcomes, it just gets a little bit stale, would you say, Johnny, if we have to continue to take beatings like this.
Right. And unfortunately, a lot of them are the same losses. Feels like we've already seen this movie again, right?
Groundhog Day.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. So, all right, that'll wrap it up for this edition of Sox on Tap. Thank you again for everyone tuning in. We're here to drown your misery. So until next time, White Sox forever.
White Sox forever.